Hi, welcome to the Vaguely Anime Podcast. I am one of the hosts this evening, afternoon, whatever, Michael, followed by other host, Sage.
Hi.
Welcome to another Vaguely Anime Reviews. We're going to be talking about the Navatar.
Netflix Avatar.
The Netflix Avatar, and our thoughts. Sage is resident, will rewatch the show 5 times a year.
Yeah, I think I've probably watched Avatar in its entirety, like, at least 30 times.
And I've done it, I think, 4 times.
Like, I think I've rewatched it at least once a year. Every year. Even when I was in, like, college.
Right.
So, I think I'm pretty educated about OG Avatar.
Yeah.
So when it was coming to Netflix, I was like, oh, okay. Going into it, I tried to give myself zero expectations because I think no matter what they did, it would be impossible to meet the same level of meaning that the original has or even to surpass it.
Right.
But on the same hand, book 1, I think, is the easiest book to adapt or to alter because it has a lot more episodic structure to it. So I was trying to give them as much benefit of the doubt as I could, but they just make changes that are either worse or don't actually provide anything.
Right.
And it's weird because they've taken a story that is very character focused and decided, no. The characters of the story are not important. Just the overarching story is what we're going to focus on, which seems weird.
Right. Well, yeah, so real quick, because we're going to try to keep this quick because we have a lot to cover. Just general, would you recommend it? Do you think it's worth watching? And are you like interested in season 2 or not?
I think I would recommend that people watch it, especially if it's something that you are on the fence about watching. Because it is, I think it could have been a much worse experience in terms of an adaptation. Right. I really think the whole package is really not terrible. It just has some very obvious flaws. And I think even things that are flawed are important. Right. You know, so I think to completely dismiss it because it's live action is probably the wrong view of, like, the wrong way of thinking about how if I should watch it or not. Right. I think you should give it a good, fair chance. And I am curious to see season 2 because of the changes that they've made to season 1. I want to see if those changes have a meaningful payoff. Right. Because if they don't, then I think I can more confidently be like, this was pointless. But because season 1 is so much set up, I can't really give you a definitive, yes, this is good, yes, this is bad. Right. Because there's so many things that still need to happen. Yeah. So that's my view. What about you?
I don't think I'd ever say it should be someone's first go at Avatar. I think at best the show is fine. At worst, it's boring. Yeah. And I'll probably watch a season 2 to see what they do with it, but like I'm not excited about it. Like I'm not like.
Oh yeah, I'm not
I'm not waiting for it.
Yeah, I'm certainly not sitting at the edge of my seat like waiting for season 2 or any information about it. Just when it drops, I will certainly watch it. Yeah. And I'll try to do what I did with this season, be as open-minded as I can be about it in terms of like it being its own thing. But yeah, I'm definitely not like, oh my god, I need to see season 2. Yeah.
All right, so then from there, we're gonna kind of do general talking points. We're gonna be spoiling
the whole time.
We're going to just kind of keep it general and then use specifics in episodes, ideally, is our plan. Because we tried this once before, and we only got halfway into the show before we hit an hour, and we couldn't keep going, and it was like, so we're going to try this again.
Yeah.
So, Sage has notes that we have both talked about and condensed our thoughts into one thing.
Yeah. So, I think, obviously, right off the bat, the biggest problem is the writing.
The writing is absolutely the worst part of the show.
It's very strange to me how they chose to do certain things, especially because it's just so much exposition.
Yeah.
And it's like that the entire time. It's not even like, oh, episode 1, we have to cram in a bunch of information in terms of world building right away.
We need to have Gran deliver the speech.
You know what opening. I mean? But so like episode 1, I was almost like, okay, I can let go of that, right? Because there is a lot of background info that they want to get through. But then they keep doing it.
Yeah.
Like when we're in Omashu with Teo, and they decide to combine some episodes, he's just an exposition machine. Yue's an exposition machine. Like,
yeah.
Why?
Yeah, no. Yeah, it's weird. And then like they also reframe the things, right? Like in the first episode where you see the attack happen, and then it's like you get all the exposition, but you already know it because you watched all of it happen. Yeah. And everybody knows it because they've already talked about how they know that the Fire Nation attacked everybody and killed everyone. Yeah. So like they know the information, so why are we getting the exposition of it?
And it's weird too because we when we're seeing the attack on the Southern Air Temple, the Firebenders are not like beefed up enough.
The Firebenders, all their attacks look like regular firebending attacks in the show.
Yeah.
They don't look like they are overpowered comet napalm strike enabled firebenders.
They are not like god tier bending as they should be. So it kind of like nerfs the comet.
Yeah. And then like you have the other thing where it's like, you know, then they show Gyatso like fighting back, and Gyatso like kind of goes out like a bitch.
Yeah, he gets taken out pretty quick.
He like knocks like 6 dudes down, but they're definitely not dead, and they're just like, and then he just kind of gets taken out immediately. Yeah, and it's like that would be more fine, I guess, if it seemed like the fire stuff you were using was super powerful, but like also in the show, like it's not even like it's a moment where it seems like you're finally showing us the thing that we have never seen. And you can argue whether you wanted that or not, but it's there. But like, the show has the whole where like Gyatso's surrounded by skeletons.
Oh, firebenders.
Firebenders. They just fucking murked. And in this, it's just him laying on the floor.
Yeah.
Like, and he was protecting like the children. So you would think he'd be like going fucking all whole.
Yeah,
like,
going ham.
But nope. He just kind of gets his ass kicked.
Also, in terms of writing, because they have to do so much exposition, and a lot of the conversations are extremely unnatural, they just start word vomiting. The first time Aang and Katara and Sokka meet each other, it's just immediate word vomit.
Right.
Of, it's been 100 years, and this is what's happened since then.
Yeah. And in that same vein,
nobody talks like that.
Yeah, and in that same vein, when they first meet, like it's not even something shown to us via like Katara's power.
Yeah,
it's just nope. Aang's been on the surface, floating around.
Yeah.
And like I've seen some people being like, oh, her pulling the boat towards them is what triggers
the iceberg.
But like if that's the case, it doesn't feel like that's what's actually happening.
It's communicated so poorly visually that I actually was just like, wait, so it just broke on its own for no reason?
Yeah, like it feels
like Aang decided he's over his nap.
Yeah, like it feels like it's just a lesser version of showing Katara's strength, of her like doing the thing and snapping the iceberg into billions of pieces, and then running up and choosing to be like, there's a boy in there, I gotta free him, and hits the thing to break it.
Yeah.
Which is a long line of Katara not having any real characteristics or doing much in this show, especially in relation to Aang. And that's not even like I want them to be a relationship dating mood. I just mean they don't feel like they're close at all.
Yeah, it's weird because it feels like the show constantly tries to find excuses for the main trio to not be together.
Yeah. Like, immediately in the original show, Katara convinces Sokka to go rescue Aang because he is a symbol of hope.
Yeah.
In this version of the show, she's like, I
have a chance to go to the.
No, it was I couldn't even water bend enough for a thimble. Yeah. Now I can like make a ball.
Yeah.
So her reasoning is to get better at bending, not because he's a way to change the world.
Not because he is the Avatar.
Yeah, it's just, he made me slightly better at bending, so like
he
we should keep going.
He encouraged me with nice words.
Yeah, which is awful motivation for a character that you're thinking should be there for the rest of the time, like to help foster Aang into becoming a better person.
Yeah, and so you immediately have that poor setup of why they're even going with Aang.
Yeah.
But then when they are together, in basically every single location, they're constantly split up. Mm-hmm. In Omashu, immediately Katara's with Jet, and then Sokka's with the Mechanist, and Aang is fucking off doing some other stuff before he gets to Bumi.
Either dealing with Zuko or dealing with Bumi.
And then after we leave Omashu, and they're in the spirit world, which is a whole mess of itself. Aang is just flip-flopping between several locations, and then Sokka and Katara get stolen by Ko the Face Stealer. And even in the Northern Water Tribe, they don't spend any time together.
Yeah.
Like, Sokka's either with Princess Yue or with the Water Tribe, like, troops.
Yeah.
And
the one time Aang basically interacts with Katara, he's like, hey, don't fight.
Yeah. It's so weird to me that I'm like, okay, so this core group and essentially your main characters that you want them to have an especially strong connection to each other, you don't let them be together and experience things at all?
Yeah.
It's so bizarre to me. I'm like, why? I get that you guys feel like you need to speedrun things, but like, you can't really speedrun character development. You can't just tell me, oh, we're so close now. We're a family.
They're only a family because we're told they are.
Yeah.
Not because they feel like one, which again goes back to like when they're stolen by Ko the Face Stealer. It only feels like Aang needs to rescue them because the story demands he rescue them, not because he actually cares about rescuing them.
Yeah.
And he gets sidelined in like 5 different ways from doing it, and it's just too many things.
It's just such a mess in terms of like...
He has like 30 years to save them.
The structure in which they set up these episodes, it feels like at the same time, there's no time for anything.
Yeah.
We have to blow past everything. But at the same time, we're going to go so fucking slow between each point.
Yeah.
That if they have time doesn't matter.
Yeah, they have like, what, 20 extra minutes than the actual season, and yet somehow
they do way less.
Yeah. And like, but sometimes their combination of stories does work really well. Like, I think episode 3 and 4, their combination of the stories within Omashu of the Northern Air Temple, Jet, Secret Tunnel, regardless of what you think of them, they are smart combinations.
Right.
It's just there's too much going on in the way that they've written it and framed it that it feels like they don't work together. Yeah. Where honestly, putting them within the same location does work. It's just the way they deliver it doesn't. So like those ideas I think inherently are smart, whereas episode 5, their combination of stories is horrific and in so bad that Heibai has no real actual existence.
He's just there.
He shows up for like a minute, if that, of
and
screen
then like
time,
fucks off,
and then they never go back to it.
Yeah.
So like it's just so weird. Wang Shitong shows up there for no reason, and it's really just there for the people that have seen the show because they're probably not going to do the library episode.
They don't even set up the library.
Yeah, and they do the opposite of setting up the library.
They really do.
But like
they make Zhao feel like he's an actual idiot. Like in the original, I feel like Zhao, like while he's a secondary villain, he still feels like he is threatening and intimidating, and like he has a lot more resources than Zuko, right?
Yeah.
And it feels like he's able to be like one step ahead because of these reasons and because he's smart. Mm-hmm. He doesn't feel smart. It just feels like things are handed to him.
Yeah.
It doesn't really feel like he's accomplishing anything. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And it's like, yeah, because it again, like Wan Shi Tong shows up and he delivers exposition we already know.
Yeah.
So he's also showing up adding nothing. So it's not only means nothing to people that haven't seen the original show. To people that has seen the show, it's just a worse version of the character because he doesn't have the like mystery and ambiance and like all-knowing thing. He just comes off like we already know this man. Like yeah. And then they have like other things where they bring in like the mother of faces, and it's like yeah, sure, that's like a nice thing that is brought up, but it doesn't actually impact the story in any way. It's just Roku stole this idol for some reason. Yeah. Here it is. Give it back to him. Yeah. Like. But why? Why is this the way we're going about it? Like, it just doesn't seem like it means anything. And then again, in that same vein of like, you know, with Zhao just seems like so much less competent. And I get if you want to change him to like being a bottom feeder kind of guy.
Right.
But like,
because it could work with the
because out of all the characters
structure
to change,
you have, right.
yeah, Zhao, like it's fine, but they don't do it in a way that works, I think. And then it makes Zuko seem worse in comparison because Zuko comes off like such a whiny brat.
I think if they wanted to have Zhao as this bottom feeder, like, very much like trying to like rise himself up kind of a thing, I feel like they maybe needed to go like more with it.
I think
more
like,
slimy.
Yeah, like or still have some amount of like
menace,
like that he still found that scroll somehow. Like he killed somebody
that
for
that he is able to figure things out for himself.
Like that he like, you know, he's still like smarmy and trying to get anywhere, but like maybe instead of finding the library, he found the fucking scroll by killing some scholar. Yeah. Or like robbing his boat. Right. And then found this and was like, I can use this somehow, but I'm too low on the totem pole to get anything.
Yeah, like I don't know how, but this information could help me.
Yeah.
To achieve my goals.
Right. So like it just it feels lessening, and then in that same vein, it's like, you know, we don't get the Agni Kai between him and Zuko, which is fine, but like it's a way to set up the Agni Kais in a way and show the characters of Zhao, Zuko, and Iroh. Yeah. Without being said. Yeah. But everything in this show is said.
Everything has to be so explicitly exposited that there is not a single chance for you to like sit down and think about a character's feelings or motivations or even like how something is impacting them, because something will happen and then immediately after somebody else is telling you exactly what happened.
Yeah. And it's like, but then sometimes they'll say stuff and then they don't follow through with it. Like they get told going to the Fire Nation would be a fucking suicide mission, basically.
Yeah, like, oh, it's going to be dangerous trying to get to Roku's temple.
Aang's like, I need to get to Roku's temple. And it just hard cuts and he's flown there on his glider.
You know what's so funny? It's not even that hard cuts. The episode ends with him like being I have to go to the Fire Nation.
You're right.
The episode opens with him already there.
Yeah, he's just flying on his own glider to get there. And he has no real problems. He just walks in and he's like, hi, I'm the Avatar. Want to help me? And they're like, kill him. Yeah. Like, have you not been getting told this entire time? And so but then he has no real problems getting like out of it either.
Nope.
It's just.
Because here's the thing. So Aang doesn't have any struggles at all.
No.
None. But also, even when they set up, okay, there is a threat that's looming. Before he can even get to the threat, it's solved for him.
Which, in that vein, brings up the Kyoshi Warrior episode, which is, I think, actually a really good episode. The Kyoshi Warriors, just as a point, look great. And I think, in general, it should be mentioned, the costume department did a great job in the show. I think, if anything, maybe it needed a little more weathering because it looks a little too pristine.
Too fresh, I agree.
But the Kyoshi Warriors look fantastic.
Too fresh, and I will say, for some reason, some of the wigs just fell to the wayside. I don't know what happened. Maybe you guys just ran out of your wig budget, which I get it. It's a struggle out here. But there
the wig budget.
There needed to be a second look at Princess Yue's wig because her wig is so bad it's actually distracting. And it's weird because she's the only one where it's like that objectively bad.
Right.
I don't know what happened.
That's really only a you thing. I didn't even notice it.
Oh my God. Every time I see it, I'm like traumatized.
With the Kyoshi Island episode, so actually there's a few things I would like to bring up while we're on the Kyoshi Island part, which is, again, character beats. Mm-hmm. And this does relate to Aang not having consequences, but we'll get there. Getting rid of Sokka's sexism, I originally, too, was like, that feels like getting rid of a part of a character development. They changed it in a way that's fine. They just made it, instead of sexist, he's just
braggadocious.
Yeah, he inflates his own skills and is self-conscious.
Yeah.
Insecure. And that's fine. I think that's a fine change. But they don't follow through with it, which is to say that, like, he's throwing his fucking boomerang at some melons, and Suki shows up and is like, oh, I have a thing that also comes back to me too. And she's like, doing this, at least in a way, to me, comes off as like she thinks she's being playful and flirting and showing off her warrior skills to someone that is also claiming to have been a warrior.
Right.
So she's like, let's compare. Like,
right.
I want to show you what I can do. You show me what you can do. Except he's lying about it and she doesn't understand that.
Right.
And then he like storms off all mad and she doesn't get why. But then they set up the fact of like he's looking outside their dojo while they're training, trying to like do the moves. And he looks in, she cancels the class and looks out. And you think you're going to get the moment where he walks in and is like, please train me. I lied. I don't know anything. Like, I would be honored for you to teach me.
Right.
And where he humbles himself.
Yeah.
But it just hard cuts to
them training.
Yeah, them training. Which is like, you're setting up the thing, but you're not giving the payoff of the character moment.
Yeah.
You need the character moment of him being like, of groveling, of breaking down, of getting rid of his pride to admit he doesn't know what he's doing.
Yeah.
But you cut it out, so then what's the point?
I think a part of it is they are literally allergic to character development.
Yeah, which is weird because they're like, oh, we're going to be a more serious version of Avatar.
And I don't understand why, because even if you were taking like the general beats, right, from the original, and you're like, okay, these are the general things we want to stay with, and these are the things we want to change. Even within those general beats, they decide to throw away the actual character development that comes with those beats.
Yeah, because they also throw out Katara's development because in multiple
nobody has flaws.
Yeah.
No one's allowed to show that they are anything other than maybe just an insecure teenager.
Yeah,
which is very weird to me because you're actively weakening every single character and all of their motivations.
Yeah, because well, staying within episode 2 real quick. In that same vein, in the original version, Aang has a moment where he is forced to leave Kyoshi Island because that'll draw the firebenders away.
Right.
Because he can't stop them.
Right.
And he has to watch as the village is burning and he's leaving, and it causes them to leave. And then you brought up when we were talking about it to ourselves that it also cuts out a hero moment for him. Yeah. Because he jumps into the water and gets the Unagi to spray water on the village. Yeah. So it still shows a heroic moment for him, even though he is leaving.
Yeah.
But here, like, and he has to deal with the consequences of leaving those people. But here, there are no consequences because Avatar Kyoshi shows up and it just saves the day. And the village is fine with it.
Yeah.
There's no real downside. Also, Kyoshi doesn't kill anyone. Yeah, Kyoshi would fucking murder everybody. They would not be walking away.
Seriously.
But that's neither here nor there at this point. But, like, there is no consequence. And then they have Zhao being the one attacking the village instead of Zuko, which just feels like that's only the case. So that way Zuko doesn't seem evil.
Yeah. This is something else that is in our general of... It almost feels like they don't want the Fire Nation in general to feel evil. Even like moments with Zuko, all his things that he would do that are deemed evil, he either doesn't get to do them or it's on a much smaller scale.
Yeah.
Which is just weird to me. And then you have Ozai, who also doesn't feel as evil because they write him in a very confusing way of like, okay, he's doing things that are obviously brutal, right? But then you're adding in these character moments where it's either like he's remorseful or proud or has another agenda for why he's doing these brutal things. But humanizing him in the way they're doing it now, they're doing it in such an inconsistent way that I can't tell what his motivations are.
Yeah.
And I don't know why he's choosing to do these things.
Right.
Whereas in the original, even when we don't see Ozai at all, outside of like a silhouette, we can understand, even though we've only seen Zuko within the first season, that he only sees his children as tools.
Yeah.
Right? For his personal gain. But in this one, he sees them as tools, but he also wants them to grow into their own people. And he also wants to groom Zuko to be the next Fire Lord while also lighting a fire under Azula's bottom to step up and also achieve greatness. And it's very confusing. And I'm like, I don't know what you want me to feel about this character.
Yeah, because like there's the whole thing with their Agni Kai where the setup for it is also immediately different because Zuko goes to the meeting and does not speak out of line. Ozai asks for Zuko's opinion on this, and he goes, "This is a bad idea. This is a bad plan." Well, he tries. He gives two other ideas.
Yeah, that they say are bad.
And then they're like, "Oh, I have this idea," and he's like, "But that would sacrifice those people." And he's like, "Well, that's what happens."
Yeah.
And then the meeting is over.
Yeah.
And the only reason he speaks out is because the guy then goads him after the meeting, and he's like, this is a terrible plan."
Yeah.
And that is what then causes Ozai to be like, show some fucking respect, whatever. And then they do the Agni Kai, which is not in front of fucking anybody.
Yeah.
And Ozai won't attack Zuko, like while he's down on his knees. He's like, stand up. We're not doing this.
Yeah.
Get up and defend yourself. Which lessens the monster within Ozai because it's supposed to be showing how evil he is that he doesn't care if Zuko's not fighting. He walks up and just fucking disfigures him.
Yeah.
But in here, he does not attack him until Zuko gets up to defend himself. And granted, it is actually a pretty nice fight, but like it misses the point because he defends himself and almost wins. He could have hit Ozai in the face with his own fire.
He does get the upper hand.
Yeah, but he doesn't. And then he's like, compassion is a weakness.
Yeah.
And then goes to burn him. And then also it gives Iroh an out from his own guilt because he walks up and is like, don't do this.
Yeah.
Instead of being like, oh, I looked away. I couldn't.
Yeah, I couldn't bear witness.
He actually like gets lesser guilt from it because he tries to stop it.
Yeah.
It's like nobody can have bad moments. And Ozai, while burning his son's eye, looks like he's deeply
like on the verge of tears.
Yeah.
It's so bizarre to me because you would because then he's even says, I think, the exact same line of like, you need to learn respect and suffering will be your teacher.
Yeah.
Right. But the intent and emotions that you get from that in the original is such disdain and cruelty, right? And detachment from his son.
Right.
But then in this one, it's like he's like, like a parent that feels bad because they just like hit their kid, right? And they're like, oh, I'm so sorry, I'll never do it. Like, it's that kind of vibe.
Right.
And it's very bizarre to me, the direction they're going with it.
Yeah. And then in that same vein of like with the Fire Nation, I like the idea of bringing Azula into the first season, but I think their execution of it is wrong.
Yeah.
In that Azula, I understand that the way that Ozai like hypes up Zuko in front of her is a way to manipulate her.
Right.
But it feels weird that he's doing that and we see it affect her. Where Azula feels like a character that like it does affect her, obviously, but like it not in a way that she lets on. That it just affects her in a way of trying harder, but she clearly gets like off kilter about it.
Yeah.
Like she's clearly affected. She's emotional about it. And like in a way it's like they're trying to make her feel like a real like a regular teenager, but she's not.
She's, you know, it's so funny. They make Azula more angsty.
Yeah.
And they make Zuko less angsty.
Yeah. Like it feels odd. And then they also have May and Ty Lee there, which they don't really add anything. So it feels like instead you should have had her still go recruit them and had like Lo and Lee be there instead.
I think they only have May and Ty Lee there as like a fan service thing.
I mean, totally. But it totally makes way more sense that it should be like Lo and Lee. They're her fucking bending trainers.
We learn literally nothing about them. They're just there to like be her like hype squad.
Yeah.
And I could have done without them. Like there was no reason to have them included here. And also about Azula and this whole her father is goading her on and all this stuff. And saying how Zuko, he's done the impossible.
Right.
They have these really weird, like, repetitions that I don't know why they do it.
Right.
But yeah, so, like, Zuko's done the impossible. They say that a lot, but only within the context of one episode. Mm-hmm. So it feels like even more times.
Yeah.
But in the original, the only time where we see Azula is at the end. And Ozai's like, Zuko has failed. Now you have to achieve this mission.
Yeah.
And she's like, you got it, Dad.
Mm-hmm.
Because when he's saying that he's failed, it's this thing of like, oh, he's an even bigger disappointment than I already thought he was.
Yeah.
He wasn't able to achieve a task that anybody else was able to achieve. How dare he?
Yeah.
But
he failed the impossible task I gave him.
Yeah, but because I think even in that short clip that we see, like Azula's already framed to be perfect, right? And I think this is in season 2 or maybe season 3 where Zuko says the line of, my father says Azula was born lucky. And I was lucky to be born. Mm-hmm. Like that right there completely defines their relationship to each other.
Yeah.
And to their father. So why are we muddling it to make it more confusing?
Yeah, no, I agree. And it's like, and then in that same vein of like talking about how whenever they're showing the past and everything, when they're doing the episode of their version of the storm.
Yeah.
I think that episode combines their plots well. But the execution of the storm is what bothers me.
Yeah.
I understand that they're doing it in a different framing where it's Zuko's story is compassion is weakness and Aang's story is friends are reliability. Like they're doing it that way because we've already seen him the backstory where he didn't actually run away this time. He just
went to go clear his head.
And just by happenstance it was on the same day that the
Fire Nation's attacking.
Instead of he runs away, and then at some point within that time period, they all die, which makes it so much more.
It's literally framed to be the exact time frame that he's out.
No, I mean in the show where it's it's just he left, and at some point,
right?
We don't know. I don't think we don't.
In the original, you mean?
Yeah,
no. In the original, we don't know when it is. Yeah.
Like the difference.
Sorry, I thought you were talking about the Navatar.
Yeah, but in Navatar, it's the same day. It is literally the same, like within the same 3 hours. But
like imagine leaving your house, it's just out of like view and then it bursts into flames. Like that's how it happens.
But then with Zuko's story, they're doing like the framing, but Zuko's story isn't being told to anyone.
Yeah.
And Aang's story isn't being told to anyone. He's not admitting like that he's being told that his friends are a liability and someone is there to listen and be like, that's not true. It's just being told to, well, Aang's is being told to him.
Yeah.
Zuko's is being told to nobody.
Yeah.
So it's
just the audience.
It serves no narrative purpose except for the audience. Where in the original, it serves a narrative purpose because it's convincing, it's telling the crew what why their captain's an asshole.
Yeah.
Because of all the shit he went through.
Yeah.
And so it's framed to nobody. And then at the end of the episode, the crew is like, your your nephew's a fucking asshole. And Iroh's like, he's actually not. You're the 41st Division. Right. He saved you.
Yeah.
And it's like, I think that's a great addition, but it would have made way more sense if they were being told this story the whole time.
Yeah.
Instead of one guy being like, your nephew's a dick, and him being like, actually, you're the 41st Division. Like, I feel like it would have made way more sense, right? If he doesn't have to be told they're the 41st Division. He's getting told the story, and he's like, he saved the 41st Division from dying or whatever. The story keeps going, and at the end of the story, the guy's like, the 41st Division, is that what you said? And he's like, yeah, and he's like, he saved us?
Yeah.
Instead of Iroh blatantly being like, you guys are the people he saved. Mm-hmm. Because then one guy gets
told that. He's the reason you're alive.
Yeah, one guy gets told that. And then, like,
the whole crew.
5 minutes later, if that, in actual time, the whole crew already knows the whole story and is there standing, doing bows to him.
Yeah.
And it's like, this would have been way more impactful if all of you were sitting around talking, being told this story, like in the original framing. But no, one guy gets told it and has to be explicitly told instead of getting the gist of what he's being told because he was sitting there listening to the story.
Yeah.
So it's just a way weaker setup for something that could have been, it is a nice moment, but would have been so much better of a moment because they figure it out themselves.
Yeah, I think they do this a lot of like, because there's so many great character moments that happen and they're like, ooh, these are good, this is juicy material, but we don't want it to feel the same because then what's the point if we're just doing a 1-for-1?
Right.
They change the setup or they remove certain aspects, but then they don't do it in a way that's elevating the material in any way.
Yeah.
Or if they are going to take something away, they don't replace it with anything, which is very bizarre to me. Because I understand you want this to be your own thing. Because I personally believe doing a 1-for-1 would have been a waste of time. A bigger waste of time, at least.
Well, yeah. It makes no sense to do a 1-for-1.
Yeah. So.
But if you're going to change things, they need to either be the same quality or better.
The problem is, I think, they are not doing things thinking about how it's affecting the characters.
Which is, like, writing 101.
I know, but the problem is the story, it's not the characters are actively making decisions that are moving the story along.
Yeah. It's
just the story has to move along no matter what, and you guys are just like placed into each scene because that's what we wrote down.
Like, I hate just shitting on writers and stuff because it's like their job and their livelihood and like they're probably trying as best they can. But I don't know. They could be like the Witcher staff that's like, fuck the original material. We're going to do our own thing. In which case, I don't care about shit talking you.
Yeah.
So, like, I don't really know. I would hope that they were trying their best and just, I don't know, some things went wrong somewhere. But, like, the script and the setup and everything feels like a first pass.
Yeah.
Not like something that had been workshopped and into a fine-tuned thing.
Yeah.
Anyway, you were
I was just going to say, I think we should move on or at least stray from writing right now.
I was going to bring up Katara.
Oh, I was going to bring up the fact that Aang literally never waterbends.
Which is in the same vein of Katara.
You understand.
So,
Katara
and Aang are, multiple times when I was writing my notes in different episodes where I'm like, this bitch still hasn't learned waterbending in the book about water.
Yeah.
Like, which in the very first episode, they set him up like serious Aang. He's going to get his shit done. But then never actually does that.
Yeah.
And he doesn't even try to learn waterbending.
No.
Which is a bad character move for Aang, but it also really hinders Katara because that's how they bond. And that's how you also see that Katara is more than just a perfect person, because she, you know, when the waterbending scroll comes up, she steals it, which is a character flaw.
Yeah.
Because she's like, I need this. She just gets handed the scroll in this version.
And she gets insanely jealous that Aang is
better at waterbending.
More naturally gifted bender than she is.
Yeah, like, and so you see the jealousy, but you also see that's how they're growing their bond by teaching each other and helping and whatever. But in here, since he never learns, you never see Katara be annoyed about it. If anything, Aang helps her just without doing anything.
Just with vague advice.
Yeah. And he never even attempts to do it. He doesn't even attempt to learn firebending either, where they organically show that Katara learns how to heal herself.
Yeah.
But in this version of the show, she doesn't learn healing exists till she gets to the northern northern water tribe.
She knows it exists. She doesn't know she can, because she says, I didn't know people still practice it.
Oh.
But the thing is, one, she obviously didn't discover that she could do it. And because I guess maybe in the southern water tribe, they don't do it.
Well,
you know,
there is no one there.
Extermination.
Right.
It could have just been something that they personally don't do, because the whole reason why they have so many healers is because they don't allow the women to do combat.
Right. But it's like never learning waterbending just kneecaps so many character moments, because it's a really important part of the story in the book called Water, because that's what he's learned. So now the second season is going to be him learning water and earth around the same time, or is it going to skip and just be like, anyway, he's learned water?
Yeah.
Like
if it skips, I think if they skip and they're like, oh, he learned waterbending off screen and he's like pretty good now, and they move on to earth, I think I'm going to actually be pissed off.
It's just, he gets to the northern water tribe and knows no water.
And Paku is literally like so dumbfounded that he did not waterbend once. He's like, you could have used your time more wisely, you dumb fuck.
Yeah.
What do you mean you didn't learn any waterbending?
Like, it's also in a way that he's like, he doesn't think women should be waterbending or whatever, but like, he's also like, you had one with you. Like, how do you not know it? And he's like, she was there. Like, and he's still a sexist piece of shit. And he's like,
hello?
You have a waterbender with you.
Yeah. It's just a whole mess. And the thing is, I think I've said this to you before, in that what I think this show could have utilized, and it could have made the whole thing, I think, go down so much easier, if they had just thrown in a couple of montages. And I didn't even need a montage every single episode, because that would have been fucking annoying. But like, if you wanted to have a montage at like episode 3 when they get to Omashu, or like a traveling montage or a training montage.
But the fact that you need a montage in something that is longer than the original show,
but you know
to
what
get
I
this
mean?
across.
It could have been, because they feel like they're rushing constantly but also achieving nothing.
Yeah.
I think a montage could have been the simplest, fastest way to get this kind of information across, and being like, see, look, the days are going by and they're training.
Yeah. But it's like, again, and there's that, and then there's just like other character things that they change for like no reason. It's like other things that are just weaker. Right off the top of my head, they have like their respective girl power moment in the Northern Water Tribe, which is fine to have, but I think would be much more impactful of a moment if, instead of talking it out while literal catapult fireballs are being thrown at you, the women just help. They don't ask, they just do it.
Yeah.
And he just has to accept it.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like that would be a much more powerful moment than them all standing there in a line.
Like in formation, ready to go.
We're going to keep standing here while Katara tries to convince you.
Yeah.
And then also, they just give Katara the license of master when she's done nothing.
Hold on. When that happened, I was just like, I'm sorry, where? When?
Hoopst.
Who?
Hoopst is the master?
Because...
No, but nothing I've seen makes anyone look like a master.
Because prior to the fight she just had, like, roughly 20 seconds ago with Paku, this bitch has been like splashing like a bucket's worth of water at a time.
Which is more a comment on effects and practical things.
I know.
They just didn't put weight to her attacks.
But master where?
Yeah, no, nothing makes you think that she's a master. Also, it's either the writing or a combination of writing and acting that the multitude of speeches in this show are all really bad.
Yeah.
And any speech that is actually kind of good, wildly for some character reason, is spoken to nobody. Like there's a speech with Gyatso
at the end of the episode
where he's giving a great speech that would be really inspiring to Aang, but Aang already left, and it's not like it's being where it's like, being said that it was told to Aang,
no.
but it's showing him flying away anyway. It's no, he is actively saying it after Aang left, so it does nothing.
And it's so funny too, because I noticed that they were doing these speeches at the end of episodes, being like, "Oh, this is what we can learn from this," right? But what's so funny is the way they frame it, because it's being said to literally no one. The only thing I could continuously think about, I was like, this feels like the end of a Modern Family episode.
Right.
Because they do that at the end of every single episode. And I'm like, this was a choice that they made.
Yeah, and then the other things are like that Aang isn't actually ever being taught lessons. He's teaching other people lessons, which is fine. But he should be learning things. And, like, with the framing of what they use Boomy for, which I think makes sense of a change that, like, I could totally see. He's been fighting this war for 100 years. He has to have done awful shit during this 100 years and hates his fucking life. And so he's, like, trying to be all grizzled and teach Aang this lesson and, like, whatever. But, like, he should still have the goal of teaching Aang a real lesson instead of Aang forcing him into a lesson.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't mean anything to Aang. Like, I get it's like he changes people everywhere he goes, but Aang should be learning lessons.
Yeah.
And so changing that dynamic doesn't really make sense. Plus, he also knows it's Boomy immediately, and that doesn't actually change anything.
Yeah. Sorry, just to continue off of the lessons thing. So
yeah.
Boomy, I think Kyoshi and Roku, and maybe even Kuruk are like...
They do actually... Kuruk is interesting, though. They do a fairly good job with him. I do want to say that. Again, I do want to point in some good things.
So they do this thing where a lot of the lesson is to be the Avatar, you have to stand alone.
Yeah.
And
friends are a liability.
So that's one thing. But then also, as the Avatar, you have to make impossible choices. Who do you save, right? What life is more valuable, or who do you do blah 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 for? But then that never comes to fruition.
No, he's just like, no, my friends are good.
Aang never has to make a choice at the end.
Yeah, he doesn't. There's never a point where he has to actually be like, oh, my friends are a liability. And like, you could argue that's what the whole Ko the Face Stealer thing is, but they don't like. It doesn't achieve that well. And then, but like consistently, the friends are helping him.
Yeah.
Where there's not also consistently they're hindering him.
Yeah.
There needed to be a balance, but no, it's all help, one hindrance once.
Yeah.
Like,
I just think this lesson, because if you think about it, maybe they're trying to set up season 3 with, Aang having to make the impossible choice to kill Fire Lord Ozai. And yeah, they do like
I was like, that feels like
a complete ass pull to like solve that problem for him.
It feels like an ass pull in that show. Can't wait to see how they do it.
But you know what I mean? So like they give him an ass pull so he doesn't have to make the choice to kill him. But why set it up now? It's not important now.
Yeah.
Like he doesn't have to make such a grand choice right now.
Mm-hmm.
So why are we throwing it in?
Yeah.
And, like, he keeps being like, I don't know how I'm supposed to be the Avatar, and I need guidance to be the Avatar. But no one's, like, they say it one time, I think in episode 2, where Katara's like, oh, he's so good with people. That's how he's going to be the Avatar, through like connecting people, which I'm like, wow, just be a little more obvious with that, please. But that is true. But then we don't see it happen at all.
Yeah.
Why say things and then not do them?
It's in the same thing of like, say don't show.
Show don't tell?
No, I know. But but I was like that they do say don't show.
Yeah.
So they mention that Aang has Zuko's notebook and that it comes in handy twice.
Yeah.
In very quick offhand scenes.
Yeah.
But then during the Blue Spirit part of the episode 6, they have a whole conversation, which I think is an awful place to put this conversation because Zuko would not be paying attention to him. Like it's so long and it doesn't make sense. Like Zuko again is like not feeling evil. He doesn't just wake up, hear the, do you think we could be friends?
And then
fire
attack
blast.
him, yeah.
It's just, I'll sit here and listen. And Aang's like, your notebook's been so helpful. I've been learning so much and so many things and whatever. It's like, okay, but when? You've told me twice, and one of them was just implied.
Yeah.
But like, if it's helping you that much, where has it been?
Yeah.
It just feels like it doesn't mean anything.
But also, I think that the secondary problem, or maybe the primary problem, specifically with the notebook, is Aang doesn't have to find anything out for himself.
Yeah.
There's no problem to solve or mystery or how can I do this or this. Mm-hmm. Like when he first goes into the spirit world, because he knows he has to figure more stuff out, but he doesn't know how to. The first time he goes into the spirit world is by accident. Mm-hmm. And then he figures out, okay, I need to talk to Roku. And he does the steps. But he never has to solve anything for himself in this version.
Yeah.
Which is very weird to me. Because I'm like, so you have no flaws, no struggles. You don't need to figure anything out. Why should I care about whatever problems you may have?
Yeah.
Because they get easily resolved for you anyway.
And then they also, in the same vein, like make things way more convoluted than they need to be.
Yeah.
Like the whole thing with the water and moon spirit, the ocean and moon spirit. Is like, oh, it's a special moon. They only are mortal for 24 hours instead of being mortal all the time. They need a special knife to kill the thing that Kuruk tells Aang is in the presence, but by the way, he tells Aang that it's there when he's not in the temple, which they have stated multiple times. The only time you can talk to an avatar is when it's in the temple.
Yeah. Which is so funny. I'm like, you added in this extra rule for no reason, and then you broke it yourself.
Yeah. And then and then it's like the whole setup for killing the this spirit is much weaker too, because Zhao feels like a pansy. But then, like, Iroh does his his big, like, whatever you do to that spirit, I'll unleash upon you tenfold thing. But he says it before Zhao has the spirit.
Yeah.
So then he just stands there and lets Zhao put the spirit in a bag and go to stab it. And then he just, like, walks to the side of him and then doesn't do anything about it.
Yeah.
So it feels weird. And then they almost stop it from being killed, where then he, like, stumbly falls to stab it and achieve the thing. Whereas, you know, in the original, like, he puts the thing back and then fire blasts it because they are mortal. They don't need a special thing to kill them.
Yeah.
You just kill them.
Yeah.
And in that same vein of the now not necessarily convoluted but changing character moments, Iroh doesn't help with the dealing with the moon spirit problem.
Yeah.
He just leaves.
Yeah.
He doesn't tell Yue you've been touched by the moon spirit. You can take that
transfer
spot, babe.
your life force.
Like you could take that spot. You could be the moon yourself, bitch.
Yeah.
He's like, anyway, bye.
This is awkward. I gotta go.
And then you have the fight between Zuko and Zhao, which is like a fine fight, but there's no comeuppance for Zhao because Iroh kills Zhao.
Yeah.
Not the ocean spirit fucking grabbing him and dragging him into the ocean.
Yeah.
He just gets burned to death.
Yeah, it's weird. They make choices that in isolation feel small and you're like, okay, I could let that go. You know?
Yeah.
You want to make it a like way grander, more convoluted setup on how to kill the moon spirit. Fine.
Right.
Fine. But then they just keep going.
Uh-huh.
It's not just one thing. It just it's like a snowball effect. Because they've changed this, they can't just keep running with the original storyline. They have to continuously change it. Mm-hmm. And they change it for the worse. Mm-hmm. And I don't understand who thought this was a good idea.
Yeah, like, again, in changing things for the worse, it's because when Iroh gets captured by the Earthbenders, he just does it willingly, which is fine, but it's so clear that he could have gotten away.
Yeah.
So, like, he does it the framing for it is stupid.
Yeah.
But they're like, oh, but we've changed everything else. He's not in the fucking thing. Like, he's not taking
a nice bath.
So, like, we've changed things that snowballed to this point. Now he has to just sacrifice himself in a term that he could have totally gotten away from that.
Right. And sorry, just to go back to Zhao really quickly about him being killed by Iroh as opposed to the ocean spirit. Mm-hmm. The whole reason why he even gets murked by the ocean spirit is because he's tampering with the spirits in general.
Yeah.
Right? And we get this scene where Zhao is telling Iroh, this is what I've discovered, and I'm going to execute this plan. And Iroh's like, you really should not meddle with the spirits.
You are messing with forces you do not understand.
Exactly. Like, this is something beyond you or me. We are not on the same plane, all right? And because Zhao is so arrogant and he feels like he's wearing the world's biggest shoes, and he's like the big man on top now, he thinks he can get away with that. That's the whole reason why he gets this comeuppance. And even the shirking off of Zuko trying to save him is a part of that arrogance.
Yeah, Zuko tries to save him and he just lets himself die, where in this version we don't even get that.
Yeah.
He's just dead.
So not only is his death a weaker moment in general, but we're also taking away character building from Zuko.
Yeah.
Within the same 2 seconds.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
It's very strange to me.
Yeah, it's I don't know. I feel like we still haven't touched on a lot, but
I know, but there's honestly too much, I think, to go over that would be reasonable within an hour time frame.
Yeah, but we have covered a lot.
But we did cover a lot, and I think we did cover the most important aspect, which is the fact that what's truly holding this back is the writing.
Yeah.
I think in terms of production value, this show looks good.
I think they need to learn how to give up on natural lighting at times, but yes.
Yeah, the nighttime scenes are extremely dark.
The airbending feels good. Firebending feels good. Waterbending needs more weight at times. Sometimes it's good. And earthbending is cool and sometimes also falls at the wayside.
Yeah.
But, there's the moments there which are good.
I think, at least for me, because I'm not as well versed on CGI and things like that, for me, nothing was so objectively bad that it took me out of it in terms of special effects. Right. And if it's not going to take me out of the scene, I consider it good.
Right. Yeah.
I do agree about the weight for the water bending. It just feels too
splashed water.
Yeah, too light, and it's not. It doesn't have any force or impact behind it.
Yeah.
I personally, I didn't notice anything wrong with the earthbending, but again, I'm not well versed on special effects by any means.
I don't know, some other small things. I think it is another nice addition they do is the Fire Nation citizens.
The rebellion. Yeah.
That there are people that rebel. Mm-hmm. That's nice. The hook blade fight was cool.
Yeah, with Jet's hook blades.
Yeah. There are interesting things. It's just overall.
Yeah.
It's the writing just is what pulls it back every time, and that their relationship, because of how much they're going around and not because they're combining 3 stories at once, that means they can't all be together.
Yeah.
Which makes them not feel like a family, even we're just told they're a family, but we never see that. It
inherently weakens their bond and their connection, and I personally, at the end of this season, I didn't feel like, oh, they have grown so much together and now they're going to move on to earthbending for Aang and further accomplishing his goals and trying to get to Ba Sing Se to get the earthbenders on their side of the war. Mm-hmm. You know, they just feel like three separate people who happen to be traveling together.
Yeah.
And it doesn't even feel like they have mutual goals.
Yeah, and I feel like it's going to be, they have to change the framing of, like, when Zuko goes to join them, they're like, you're a fucking villain, we can never trust you. Like, he hasn't done shit. Like,
yeah, this man has not done one villainous thing.
Yeah, like, he took you.
Yeah.
And he's been chasing you, but really hasn't done anything else. Yeah.
Barely.
So, yeah. That's our thoughts, I guess.
Yeah, I think that's the best we can do in terms of reviewing, critiquing.
What would you give it out of 10?
I would say a 6.
I'm also about a 6.
Yeah.
Again, like, at best, it's fine.
Yeah, I'm not terribly offended by this show by any means. I think it could have been so much worse.
Oh,
okay.
Yeah.
I was posing
myself. There are a
myself,
lot of Netflix live action things you could compare.
You know what I mean? I was posing myself for this to be truly horrible. So the fact that it wasn't, was like a breath of fresh air.
Yeah.
And while yes, I do think there could be improvements, and that's also in part why I'm interested to see what happens with season 2, because I think this show does have potential to be good.
Right.
I think the main problem is it's holding itself back.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, no, I agree. And it's like, again, that thing where they're like, oh, you know, we're going to be gritty like Game of Thrones. But it's like, you somehow treat everybody like they're more childish than the actual original show.
Yeah, it's way more. There's like no nuance.
Yeah.
It's way more obvious, which I think is actually hilarious.
Yeah. All right. That's our thoughts. Thanks for joining us on this special. Until we decide to do another one for something we vaguely give a shit about.
Yeah.
See what I did there? Vaguely gave a shit. Yeah. Anyway, we'll see you guys next week see you tomorrow for whatever episode is coming out. So see you then. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, leave a review, like, follow. Check Kat out, Kat the Moonstar on Twitch. And yeah.
Bye.
Oh, and we also do anime clubs every 5 episodes. So if you like this and you like us reviewing shit, check out those episodes.
Yeah.
Bye.